Welcome to the line. Today we have a theist named Paul who doesn't understand where justice comes from in atheism. Little does he know, that's not the point of atheism, but Christianity also doesn't provide justice. If y'all want a long-ass dumpster fire of miscommunication, then please stay tuned. But all right, so we're going to try Paul again and see if Paul can hear us. Hey there, Paul from, California. I don't know why I thought Canada. California. Hey there, Paul.
How's it going, John? How are you?
Pretty good.
Oh, I barely heard you. Okay. Anyways, I had a quick question, and it's just real simple just to talk about. Because I just heard Jim saying that he just likes conversation, and that's what I like. I'm a theistic physician, and the three words that I was thinking of was justice, hope, with love. And I heard you, John, saying that the Bible doesn't make sense, which I disagree with that, but that can be talked about in our conversation. And Jim, I heard that you were talking about your parents and family where they were very religious, and it's really hard to deal with that. And that the whole concept of love is probably the most important or the most powerful concept of any of us. We all want love and care. So under the foundations of, say, if you want to say justice and hope, how does an atheist or agnostic, it doesn't matter, or just anybody who in their belief system, that's another thing. I hate the word religion. When I did give my heart to Christ, I absolutely said I don't like the word religion because everybody has a belief system. Every single person. Everybody has some type of ethic, standards, values, something, right, to live by. Is that not true?
Seems reasonable. I don't know about psychopaths and sociopaths, and some of the more immoral non-neurotypical folks in that respect. But I think for the purposes of this conversation, we can agree that that's a nice little finger in the air type of statement that has caveats.
Yeah. Okay. So, and that's the thing. When you have people who are very powerful, and if you want to call it wicked, and they can get away with things, and they don't have the same standards and values that myself and maybe you have, and they can get away with it. So, when justice is not carried out, what do you do? What do you think? I usually use my goddaughter because, in fact, I just got off the phone. I'm sorry about that, but I took my call from my goddaughter. She's 21. She's in school here at Loma Linda, and she's a speech pathology teacher. I'm in the medical field too, and so these are important things to me. And the other reason is that. It's just real quick. The whole reason that I determined to give my heart to Christ was a reason because there was something intelligent behind something I couldn't see that brought about a very challenging time in my life. And it was based on difficulties. It wasn't because God was so good, but it's that there was order in my life that was to my, and actually my family's, just demonic. And it was very orderly. And it was painful. And the only person who didn't get hit was like my sister. But that's just subjective. I know what I'm saying. But
let's pick one topic.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you wanted to know about justice, like how do?
That's right.
Okay, let's go with the justice angle. So you're asking us like on a world view that doesn't include God. How do we attain justice? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Let me give you a simple example. Okay, the goddaughter that I was telling you about. Okay, if she was raped and murdered, and I went to court, and the guy is guilty as hell, and he's acting in the courtroom, and he knows he's getting away with a technicality, or because he knows the judge. Maybe it's the judge is a grandfather or something. He gets off. He's smirking in court. Now, at the end of this court, let's set God aside completely. God set him aside. At the end of this court, justice is definitely not met. He is we know he's guilty. How do you know about justice? What do you do at that point in time? This is my goddaughter or somebody that you love and care about injustice has been carried out to a maximum degree, right in your family, touching your heart completely because you love this person. What do you do at that point in time?
You can open up a civil case and take away everything they own through the civil case. Other than that, it depends on, that'd be here in the U.S. And I don't know what the recourse would be in other countries, what the legal recourse would be.
Okay.
But so I think what you need to hold on, I think what you're trying to get at here is the fact that not everybody is punished for injustices that they do, and so you see that as justice not being served. That's right. I failed to see the difference between that and the Christian religion, which I'm assuming that you're of the Christian religion, right?
I said that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think I remember you talking about giving yourself to Jesus. So I don't see a big difference between the two in this instance. Well, other than I think that there's more of a likelihood that justice can be served in reality than there is in whatever afterlife may exist. And that's primarily because there's a lot of holes through which people can slip through the system. I mean, if you just take the Catholic Church, thousands of years, Catholic priests have diddled little kids. Nobody has been served justice in that. In the past, nobody had been served justice. Nobody had been stopped, and it wasn't until people started asking the uncomfortable questions and pushing back against this global, international, what is basically a criminal organization. Once they started pushing back against them, that's when people started to be held accountable for their actions. Otherwise, what was done? People left it up to God. They were like, oh, well, he's got to make it right with God. And you still see that even now in Protestant versions of Christianity. You have churches out there that are notified of the illegal actions of people in their organizations, and they leave it up to God. Like they handle it internally. They have them pray or get right with God or see a church counselor or whatnot, instead of actually providing justice. They handle it internally.
And going back to the Catholic Church also has the concept of, if you are really, really sorry and you do your penance, your soul is wiped clean and there's no sin anymore. And this isn't just Catholicism. Other Christian religions have the same thing. So where's your justice in this case? Because the only thing this person has done is walked into a confession booth, said his ominous dominuses, did his 150 Hail Marys or whatever the penance was given, and all of a sudden his soul is wiped clean. There's no justice for that, because in order for justice to happen, you need to go to the victim and make things right with the victim. And that hasn't happened. So you're not even making things right with the person that you harmed. And so where's the justice in that?
And let's transpose this, and I'll let you speak right after I do this. Let's transpose the Christian version of justice that a majority of Christians believe in. Let's transpose that to the courtroom, like you were talking about. What if our court system operated like that? What if that horrible thing could have happened to your goddaughter, but the guy that perpetrated this injustice against her, all he had to do was beg for forgiveness and promise he would never do it again, and then he's let go to live for eternity without suffering any repercussions for it. Where's the justice there?
Okay, I think the points that you brought up are very valid. The first thing, and there were multiple points and perspectives there. The first thing I would say, and I find this is really important, when you're talking about God and justice, or even God, the one thing that every person can have access to is the scriptures. So we can read what it says. The Bible doesn't teach that you can just say, I go ahead and murder 1,000 people. like Hitler, Stalin, Pol Pot. These people murdered because they're so powerful, and they got away with it. I mean, they disturbed millions of lives.
I don't want to get into a discussion with about the Bible right now, but I will just say that the Catholic Church completely disagrees with you on that and uses the Bible to justify their position. So I can make the Bible say pretty much whatever I want. So leave the Bible out of it because it's completely useless for this discussion.
Okay, but the one thing. It's not completely useless, but I understand where your perspective is. When you say the Bible can say anything, that's why you use multiple scriptures to justify or to teach a certain point. Multiple. You don't just use one vague scripture and interpret.
I'm talking about the entire Bible, not one. I'm talking about the entire Bible in the same category of completely useless because I can make the entire Bible say whatever I want. There's over 1,000 denominations of Christians out there, all of whom disagree on fundamentals based on the Bible. I don't care what the Bible says. Leave it out of the conversation.
Right. So,
that's fine.
If I could no ask problem. Paul. What do you think is the criteria, without getting into specific like Bible verses and everything like that? What's the specific criteria to be accepted into heaven for you?
Well, now we have to bring in the Bible, but I'm not supposed to do that, so I don't want to do that.
Well, no, I mean, you can talk about what you believe without using the Bible to justify it. I'm just asking about what do you think is required of you to get into heaven?
A belief and a trust in Christ, who was lifted up and draw all men to himself. So you can understand that he is powerful, and the enemy of God is powerful too, much more smart than we are. So we're talking that we're caught in the middle of a warfare that's between a spiritual entity of two sides, and we're in the middle of this battle. And so there's only two sides. So that's what it is. It's just trusting in him and submitting to him and his authority, because
so actions don't matter.
He's proved his love by giving his son. That's it. I mean, as simple as that. He's proved his love by giving his
proselytize. You're starting to proselytize a little bit, but
I'm not.
So actions really don't matter to you. It's all about the belief, not about the actions.
Okay, then we'll go back to the justice in court. The thing about this is that in the court, you can start. Remember, this is somebody you love, and justice is not carried out. And just like you said with the system, I like to use the system of Rome. It's not the people; it's the system that is if you want to say, the failure in this. And you talked about Protestants. If you look back to the Protestant Reformation, you ask the Protestant Reformation what they thought about the Catholic Church. Research that. Just research that.
I know what they thought about the Catholic Church.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so the association of the Catholic Church with the system of the belief in the God of the Bible, they aren't correlating. They aren't saying the same thing at all.
According to the Protestants, yes, the Catholics don't believe exactly what's in the Bible, but there's over 1,000 different denominations of Protestants. So, which one are you going to talk about?
And that is what I'm just saying. That's why there's a spiritual warfare. There's an enemy of God. Now, what would you do if you were the enemy? You're gonna absolutely set up. His weapon is deception and wickedness.
Okay. I'm kind of curious because you said that that my representation of Christianity in the courtroom isn't correct, and how that's not how it would go down. What can you maybe explain that to me? Because I feel like I tried to transpose all of that reasonably, but you're saying that I didn't.
Well, one of the things is that, first of all, in the court, the one nice thing about, if you want to say believing in God, is to know that justice will eventually be carried out. Not necessarily in our natural plane, but in the plane, in the life, if you want to say, afterwards. That's one.
So when you say justice, what do you mean? What do you mean by justice?
Say that again.
What do you mean by justice?
Justice means that the guy who was the perpetrator who raped and murdered my goddaughter is going to have to stand before a judge and be accountable to that.
So why do I care what happens after he dies when I'd much rather make sure that that asshole doesn't do it again?
That's right. And in this life,
because your God's not going to stop him from doing it again. Your God's not going to stop him from doing it again.
Well, you don't.
So what good is your God?
That's not true. You don't know that. You can't say that definitively.
So
it did happen. There's no question.
Well, okay. So my entire point is that in my example, the perpetrator goes in court and promises he'll never do it, and he gives his life over to Jesus, or he promises, he does whatever he needs to in order to get into heaven, and go free, basically, without any kind of punishment or any kind of justice being served. What prevents that from happening in your worldview? He goes to jail.
He goes to jail. No,
so you're telling me that even hold on. Tell me if I got this right. You think that in that situation, even if the person gives their life over to Jesus, repents of their sins, they still won't get into heaven?
No, I didn't say that. Or if I did,
okay.
I didn't say that at all. No.
Well, you said that they'll still go to jail, or they'll still be punished for their actions.
Sorry, he wasn't convicted to go to jail, so he's not going to jail. But I'm just saying, if he was going to go to jail, just because he repents and gives his heart to Christ, that does not stop him from justice being carried out, that he would go to jail, spend life in there, and deal with the consequences of the rules of the jail. I mean, he's going to have to survive.
Actually, there are court cases where the defendant actually has done that and has gotten a lighter or no sentence.
Right.
Say that again? I don't know.
But
there are actual court cases where this happened.
Right. You understand that I'm talking. I'm trying to transpose the Christian form of justice over into your real world court situation. I'm trying to use the rules from Christianity in court to determine whether or not that person to determine whether or not justice is served. In Christianity, justice being served is torture in hell, right?
Torture in hell, justice being served. What do you mean by torture in hell?
Well, so like the justice that you're talking about being performed and that God would perform is that he sends people to hell that have done the kind of injustice that we're talking about, right?
No. You stand before the judge and he judges your life, and he right. will see, and you will see that whatever you have done is that you will agree with this justice or the judgment against you, and then you will suffer the punishment for your crime or your
which is
injustice,
hell.
Whatever you want. What do you mean by hell? Is it going on right? Is hell going on right now? Does hell exist right now?
I mean, I don't believe in hell, so I don't know.
No, it doesn't.
Well, we don't believe heaven exists either. So asking us this question makes no sense to us because neither of those things exist.
What's that?
What's hell to you?
Hell is a judgment, and it's the destruction of all things that are wicked and God. It's a destruction. It's a judgment with destruction. That's what it says.
Okay.
It says those who it's perish. It's that you will die. It doesn't mean that you're going to live forever in torment. It doesn't.
We're already dead. So how do we die again?
What?
It's the second.
We're already dead.
How do you die? Well, now you're talking a supernatural. That's what I'm saying. We're talking a supernatural that you don't believe in.
Right.
That means that you would be.
Well, I mean, to be fair, we're talking about your beliefs. So we're obliterated. Instead of us living for eternity, we just don't live for eternity. Is that right?
That's exactly right. The wicked will not live.
Okay. Let me try to transpose this over to the courtroom again. Okay. So in the courtroom, you're either killed on sight or you're let go free. Okay. And in this situation, the person giving themselves over to Jesus and everything like that is let free and is not obliterated. How is that justice?
I don't know. Actually, when it comes to the justice of the courts, I was actually asking you the question, when this person gets away free, what are you going to do with somebody whom you love? If it happens to be your daughter, your wife, your good friend,
get them help.
Boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever.
Get them the psychological help they need. Get them the psychological help they need.
Right.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
Right. Really, Jim. But I mean, my point. But Paul. My point is that there's literally, like, you're asking this as, I feel like it's a challenge to us because we don't have this way, at least in your mind, of attaining this ultimate kind of justice. But I don't see a difference between your version of it and like that, the justice that we know that we can have. Like, there's literally no difference between the two, so it seems nonsensical to ask.
No, not at all. Because two things. First of all, I know, as a believer, I know that justice will be served in the afterlife. Number one. Number two, if justice is going to be served, if justice is not going to be served, my next question would be simple. Do you believe in vengeance and retaliation as an why?
No.
No, because acting out of anger is always a bad idea. I can't think of a single instance where acting out of anger is the right thing to do. And vengeance is always acting out of anger.
No, you're acting out of justice.
You just said vengeance. Vengeance is not acting out of justice.
Yes, it is. It can be. Justice, because justice is not served, why can I not, in a worldview, take justice in my own hands by retaliating then?
Because that doesn't do society any good. It makes society worse.
What do you mean?
When we start taking justice into our own hands, it always makes society worse. And we can see this throughout history, that anytime we have mobs of people running around with pitchforks crying for justice, that the last thing that happens is that justice happens. And so when we start doing that type of vigilante justice, it never works out well for society.
I'm not talking about society. I'm talking about
avenging Here's the fundamental problem that you have, right? I'm not going to speak for John here, but my case, my view of justice, my view of moral and immoral comes from what is good for society, what increases the happiness level of a society. Anything that increases the happiness level of society is good. Anything that decreases it is bad. That's my litmus test for good and evil. So when you start talking about vengeance and justice, I immediately go to what's going to improve the happiness of society. And what I can tell you is that the best way in this case to increase the happiness in society is not punishment of the criminal, but rather making sure that the criminal can never harm anybody again. And then making sure that the victims are made as whole as possible, given the limitations of society that we have. And that's what you do. And sometimes the system will fail, and it's on us to make sure the system works the absolute best that's possible.
Right.
By the way, your belief in God actively makes societies worse.
But say that again, Jim?
In every theist that I've run across, it has a strong belief, especially in the inerrant Bible, and takes the Bible literally. The more literally you take the Bible, the more harm you do to society.
I don't agree with that at all. I do not believe that
So the biblical view of LGBTQIA actively increases the number of suicides in the LGBTQIA community. And that the anti-LGBTQIA belief comes directly from the Bible and causes direct harm. Yes.
That's a concept now that I didn't bring up, but that I can bring that up. That goes under the concept of love. I tell you this.
No.
If the LGBT community, if they would seek that relationship with Christ personally, instead of listening to these pastors blast them senseless and take the scriptures and beat them over the head, which they could use the same scriptures and beat them over the head for just pride and arrogance, then you would have a much better...
There's a fundamental mistake you're making here, Paul. There's a fundamental mistake that you're making here, because it feels like you're putting all... I know. It feels like you're putting all of the responsibility on LGBTQ people, and that's very that's a bad thing to do.
No, What do you mean by that? I'm not putting any
Well, I mean, okay. From my position, maybe I misheard you, but from my position, you said that, well, if those people in the LGBTQ community would truthfully seek a relationship with Jesus, then they wouldn't have the issues that are foisted upon them by pastors that are beating them over their heads with these Bible verses. That puts all of the responsibility on LGBTQ people. What you're not realizing is that it's not just the LGBTQ people that are having this preached at them. And so it's not just them looking to have a relationship with Jesus. You're talking about people that seek out LGBTQ persons, and they harm them. They cause direct harm to them because of things that are said in the Bible. I forget the young man's name, but I believe there's a charity named after him. But he was strung up. Maybe it was in Texas. Anyways, he was strung up and beat to death and hung on the side of the road because of what people preached to those people.
Right. But did you hear what I said? I said, in saying the LGBT, I also said pride and arrogance, which is amongst many people. See, so I'm actually putting a broad spectrum of just seeking that relationship with Christ personally from any, if you want to say, anything that is in your heart or a belief that you say is not the best for, say, yourself or even society. I'm just saying seek that personal relationship because it's based on love. When you have relationships,
I feel like
love,
hold on.
Let me ask this question: do you think that LGBTQIA people are sinners because they're LGBTQIA?
Sinners because they're LGBTQIA.
Does somebody? So very specifically, because they're LGBTQIA. Yes, I know original sin and all that garbage, right? Okay, fine. Are LGBTQIA people sinners because they're LGBTQIA people, or because they act on it? Which of those two things is true for you, or false, as the case may be?
I don't have an answer on either one. I just think that everybody you have two choices. There's only against God or against God. There's only two choices. So when you seek God, then you just seek him as him being lifted up for each and every one of us.
Does God think a lesbian couple is acting in sin? Does God think an LGBTQIA couple is acting in sin? In your opinion?
In acting in sin, that behavior.
Yes.
Most likely. I would think...
Yeah, you're the problem.
What?
You're the problem.
It's not a problem.
That is a problem. Because here's the fact. The fact is that LGBTQIA are the way they are because of their genetics, and that's it. Okay. What your God thinks about it is completely irrelevant. What your Bible thinks about it is completely irrelevant. That's the problem. And it's that attitude that causes suicides to go up in that community. That attitude is what makes people feel uncomfortable in their own bodies. That attitude is the problem, and that attitude is based on your understanding of a book written by people who think bats are birds, that you can get striped goats from having goats have sex in front of a fence, that the world flooded, all this bad stuff. That's the problem. That's why it's evil and why it causes harm to society.
Is murder wrong? Is rape wrong? Is
yes,
stealing wrong?
Absolutely. Dude, are you about to do the objective moral values? Please tell me you're about to do objective moral values. Please.
What do you mean?
Are you going there?
Objective.
Are you going to objective moral values?
Everybody.
Yeah, I'd love you to point out in the Bible where God says that raping a woman is wrong, or raping anybody is wrong.
You don't think it is?
But point out a Bible verse where he says, "Hey, don't rape people."
Well, doing harm to your neighbor. What do you think that? What do you think that is?
Where does God say don't harm your neighbor?
From an atheistic viewpoint, what difference would it make if you choose to rape or not? What rules do you have personally?
I just explained my rules to you. I just explained my rules to you.
Okay.
I just explained the rules that I
Okay.
use to you. You want me to do it again? Actively decreasing the happiness of a society is evil. Any action that increases the happiness of society is good. Rape decreases happiness in society. It's bad. Yes. Happiness of a society. Yes.
Also, it's a violation of another person's free. Like, you could go several different routes with this. Like, there's several different secular routes you could go with condemning graping somebody. So we are we're over 15 minutes over our time already. So
but the bottom line,
we do need to be going.
That's fine, John and Jim. No problem. But the fact is that whatever your justice system is, people will violate it, because your justice, Jim, and your justice, John, is going to be different than this person or this person or this person. If we have our own
here we go. You're going
rules,
down the objective moral values, and I'm just going to put the kibosh on this real quickly. Here's the facts. Objective moral values do not exist. Objective, by definition, means it must exist outside of a mind. Morals are an opinion of an action, which means they only occur. Moral judgments only occur inside of a mind. A value is an opinion of worth, therefore exists only inside of a mind. There is no such thing as objective moral values. The moral values espoused by your Bible and your God are occasionally by accident okay. But for the most part, they harm society every time they're tried and every time they're applied, because they don't have anything to do with making a society happier and better. They tear society down. And look at every single religious war the Christians have had among themselves for your evidence. Oh, and by the way, rats have better morals than humans do. And you can go look that up too, because rats have been known to, one, sacrifice themselves and cause harm to themselves to save another rat. They have been shown to actively resist harming another rat, even for their favorite treats and foods. Bacteria and mold have also been shown to have some moral behavior. So we see this all over the place. The fact that we say that rape and murder is wrong is not unusual. We see it in every social species. This is nothing new.
Okay.
Your God has nothing special on this.
Well, then again, as I said, when Christ was lifted up, he drew all men.
Who cares? Your story is wonderful. I actually think that Harry Potter's sacrifice was much better, and better done and better explained. So.
Yeah, so sorry, I had to drop Paul. I'm not up for being proselytized to this late at night. The one thing that I do need to say though is that it's a false dichotomy to say that you're either with God or you're against God. You could not give a shit about God. And not believing in a God doesn't inherently mean that you're against God. Or different, yeah, that's a good point, honey. You being for one God, does that mean that you're against another God? Or I don't know. You could go all day with that particular thing. It's a ridiculous false dichotomy to say you're either with us or against us.
Yeah, I agree entirely. I have no idea what you're for, and I'm not sure. I may have a more nuanced position than you. So.
Yeah, and I thought that I was pretty clear what I was doing with the whole courtroom thing, but apparently I don't know. Maybe I was just.
I don't know where you. Yeah, I thought you were clear.